Andrea. I work at EDC on the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Project, which is in actuality 5 different projects. So LMC R is what the project is known as, and it's the result of actually many years worth of work and ideas. And so coming out of Hurricane Sandy, and so this is by no means an exhaustive slide, but back in 2013, the city released the SIRR report, which sort of set the roadmap for New York City's recovery and adaptation. And that was actually when the first concept of doing a shoreline extension in the water was put forward to protect Lower Manhattan. The Big U in 2014, that was a really big deal. It was really cool to hear Amy speak about the lessons learned from that process, but it secured funding through the Rebuild by Design competition for Lower Manhattan, and also galvanized a lot of people in the community around sort of this idea of on-land flood adaptation infrastructure that also serves multiple community uses. I've had the pleasure over the last couple of years of working on the Lower Manhattan Climate Resilience Study, which we released in 2019. And that was really the first comprehensive look at all the different climate risks that Lower Manhattan is vulnerable to. But it was also an effort to sort of try to bring all these ideas together and think about how we translate them into design concepts that can actually be built. So coming out of the LMCR study, we've identified $500 million worth of investments in flood infrastructure projects, flood protection infrastructure projects. And these are covering 70% of the Lower Manhattan coastline. There are a lot of different city agencies that are collaborating on this. We work really closely with the Mayor's Office of Resiliency to lead this. And because we take it really seriously to integrate infrastructure into the public realm, because we know that each neighborhood has a very unique physical context to take into account, as well as a unique community with their specific values and needs for resilience. Each neighborhood actually has its own project and its own tailored and contextual approach. So I'll just run through these really quickly. In Battery Park City, the Battery Park City Authority is leading an effort with 3 integrated resiliency projects in the north, south, and west of the neighborhood. So this is a rendering for their design in the south of sort of like elevated open space in Wagner Park. In the Battery, the tip of Manhattan, the Esplanade right now is in poor condition, so we're taking that opportunity to not only rebuild the Esplanade, but actually rebuild it to a higher height so that it can protect the park from sea level rise. In the Two Bridges neighborhood, we are designing and building a series of flip-up barriers. So these lie flush with the pavement because we know this neighborhood has really wonderful views of the waterfront. It's a primarily residential community that really relies on the waterfront for their open space. And so the benefit of these flip-up barriers is that the community can continue to access the waterfront on sunny days. And then in advance of a coastal storm coming, the barriers flip up to protect against the storm. And because we know that these capital projects take a really long time to build and climate change stops for nobody, we also have these interim flood protection measures that have already been implemented that protect against the more frequent, less extreme hazards. And so in the financial district and Seaport, this is the part of Lower Manhattan, the remaining 30% of the coastline, where we've really struggled to find an on-land capital project, and that's because of the nature of the waterfront here. It's extremely dense urban environment, a really constrained waterfront. And so over the course of the next 2 years, we will be developing a master plan to develop a shoreline extension or in-water barrier solution to protect this last gap. And this is some of the press around a team that we've recently brought on board of engineers, designers, adaptation planners, engagement specialists, ecology specialists, a really interdisciplinary team of innovators and thinkers to help us tackle this challenge. And we're really excited to bring this team on board. There are still a lot of unknowns. So some of the questions that we've been thinking about, beyond just like the intense layers of technical analysis that we need to bring together to formulate this project, we're also thinking a lot about engagement. A lot of the things that folks have been talking about here about how we define resilience on multiple vectors, how we bring people along and disseminate information and educate people on the different climate risks here so that they're well equipped to really have meaningful input on this project. Something that I've been thinking about personally as like a relatively young junior level person that has the privilege of working on these issues every day. is how we bring youth along. Just there's a lot of anger, existential dread, fear, and energy around these issues, and trying to think about how we mobilize that towards action, how we bring people into this project. And then I'll also say that we're really excited to be thinking about adaptation in the context of a larger approach to climate change, rather than thinking of adaptation and mitigation as in contradiction with one another, how we can protect against climate change in a way that is environmentally sensitive, that takes into account ecology and habitat and all these things. I think that's it for me.